What if the moment that ruined your future felt completely harmless at the time? No warning, no disaster, no dramatic collapse. Just a decision that felt small, a delay, a compromise, a quiet not yet. Most lives don't fall apart in a single moment. They erode, not through failure, but through comfort. The most dangerous choices rarely feel dangerous. They feel reasonable. This is not a story about success, or money, or genius. It's a story about the quiet moment when a person chooses between comfort and the unknown, and how that choice follows them for the rest of their life. The most dangerous choices don't feel dangerous. They feel reasonable. They sound responsible. They sound mature. They sound like, I'll wait. I'll play it safe. I'll do it later. And later becomes never. You don't lose your future in one day. You trade it away, piece by piece, comfort by comfort, excuse by excuse, until one day you wake up with a life that looks fine on the outside and feels empty on the inside. This is not a story about talent. It's not a story about intelligence. It's a story about a question that stalks people quietly. What if I try and fail? But an even more dangerous one. What if I never try at all? Long before success, long before recognition, there is always a moment of tension, a moment where two futures exist, one familiar, one unknown. Most people choose familiar, not because they're weak, but because fear is convincing. A question appears briefly and disappears just as fast. What if this isn't all I'm capable of? Most people push that thought away. They tell themselves, now is not the time. I'll do it later. Let me be realistic. And life continues. Years pass. The idea fades. The courage fades faster. Until one day, the question returns, but heavier. Why didn't I try? This pattern isn't rare. It's human. People don't ruin their lives overnight. They abandon them slowly, by choosing comfort over curiosity, certainty over possibility, safety over growth. Here's the part no one likes to admit. Jeff Bezos was not special for having the idea. Thousands of people saw the internet coming. Thousands of people read the same reports. Thousands of people understood that something big was happening. But almost all of them did nothing, because the real battle was never intelligence. It was fear. Fear doesn't scream. It whispers. It says, not yet. Wait until you're ready. One more year. One more promotion. One more safety net. Jeff Bezos heard that voice too. At the time, he was doing everything right. A top student, a Princeton graduate, a high-paying job on Wall Street. From the outside, his life looked finished, complete. And that's exactly what made the decision dangerous. Because when life already looks successful, walking away feels insane. Imagine telling your parents, I'm quitting a stable career to sell books on the internet. Imagine telling your friends, I don't know if this will work. Imagine telling yourself, I might fail publicly. Most people never get past that conversation. They imagine the embarrassment, the I told you so's, the silent judgment. And so they stay, not because they lack courage, but because they overvalue comfort. This pattern repeats everywhere. A software engineer with an idea that could change an industry but a mortgage that keeps them frozen, a creator with talent, but a fear of being seen trying and failing, a business owner who almost expands, almost takes the leap, almost leaves the safe path, almost is where dreams go to die. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. Elon Musk nearly lost everything with SpaceX and Tesla at the same time. Oprah was told she wasn't fit for television. Howard Schultz was rejected hundreds of times trying to fund Starbucks. But here's the detail most people miss. They didn't avoid fear. They moved with it. They acted while still uncertain, while still scared, while still unqualified. Because waiting for confidence is a trap. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after survival. Jeff Bezos later described a moment he called the regret minimization framework. He imagined himself at 80 years old, not rich, not famous, just old. And he asked one question: which decision would I regret more? Trying and failing, or never trying at all? That question changes everything. Because failure has an expiration date. Regret does not. Look around you. There are people who failed and recovered. And there are people who never tried and still think about it every day. The business they never started. The move they never made. The idea they never trusted. You don't see their regret, but it follows them. Quietly. Relentlessly. The world doesn't remember how scared you were. It only remembers what you did. And most people don't realize this until it's too late. Because fear is convincing. It feels logical, responsible, mature. But often, it's just procrastination in a suit. Jeff Bezos wasn't fearless. He was simply unwilling to live with the question, what if? And that's the difference between people who change their lives and people who watch others do it. Here's a brutal truth. The future does not announce itself loudly. It whispers and keeps moving. Every major shift in history looks small at first, embarrassing even. The internet was called a fad. Personal computers were called toys. Smartphones were unnecessary. Streaming was impossible. Online shopping was ridiculous. And yet, the people who laughed first were the ones who arrived last. Jeff Bezos didn't invent the internet. He didn't invent e-commerce. He didn't invent books. What he recognized was timing. He saw a wave before it looked impressive. And that is where most people fail. Because smart people don't miss opportunities due to ignorance. They miss them because they are too intelligent to move early. They analyze. They calculate. They wait for proof. But by the time proof arrives, the opportunity is already owned. Think about this. How many people heard about Amazon early and didn't buy stock? How many people heard about Bitcoin at a few dollars and laughed? How many people watched YouTube grow and never posted? How many people saw social media change everything and told themselves, it's already too late? Every generation has its almost started, almost invested, almost moved, almost acted. Jeff Bezos could have waited. He could have said, let's see how this internet thing plays out. He could have waited for more users, more data, more safety. But waiting would have cost him everything. Because waves don't reward patience. They reward positioning. Here's what no one tells you. The earlier you move, the more foolish you look. Early action always looks stupid until it looks obvious. And by then, it's inaccessible. Smart people hesitate because they understand risk. But what they underestimate is time. Time does not negotiate. It does not pause while you feel ready. It moves. And it leaves people behind quietly. There are people today who are exactly where Jeff Bezos once stood. Not in tech, not with the internet, but at the edge of something new, a shift in culture, a change in technology, a personal calling they keep ignoring, and they're telling themselves the same lie. I'll start when I'm sure. But certainty is the enemy of transformation. Jeff Bezos didn't know Amazon would work. He knew something else. That not trying would haunt him, and that knowledge was louder than fear. Look at the people you admire. Not just Bezos, not just Musk, not just Jobs. Look at athletes, artists, writers, founders. They all made one decision that felt premature. One moment where logic said wait, and instinct said move, and they listened. Here's the part most people don't want to hear. Your hesitation feels responsible, but it might be cowardice disguised as wisdom. Your planning might be avoidance. Your research might be fear. And your comfort might be costing you the life you actually want. Because the scariest sentence in the world is not, I failed. It's, I never tried. Jeff Bezos did not wait for permission. He didn't ask the world if it was ready. He stepped forward and forced the future to meet him. Because the world doesn't belong to the smartest people. It belongs to the ones who move before the story is finished. There's a moment in every real transformation when turning back is no longer possible. Not because you can't, but because you know you shouldn't. Jeff Bezos reached that moment quietly. No applause, no certainty, no guarantees, just a resignation letter. A line drawn between the life he knew and the life he might build. Most people never cross that line, because once you do, there is no comforting illusion left. No, I could always try later. No, I'll do it someday. Someday dies the moment you act. Quitting a stable job is not brave on paper. It looks reckless, irresponsible, almost delusional. And that's why so few people do it. Because society rewards hesitation. It praises caution. It applauds predictability. And it quietly punishes those who leave the script. Jeff Bezos didn't leave because he was confident. He left because staying felt like a slow death. A life where every day looked impressive, but empty, where success arrived early, and curiosity disappeared. And that's a terrifying place to be, because when comfort becomes permanent, growth becomes impossible. At this stage, fear changes form. It's no longer, what if I fail? It becomes, what if this doesn't work at all? What if I lose money? What if I disappoint people? What if I'm wrong? And worst of all, what if I'm not special? Many people reach this edge. Very few jump. Because jumping means accepting a truth most people avoid. Once you try, you can no longer hide behind potential. You are exposed. Steve Jobs was fired. Elon Musk nearly went bankrupt. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. But what's rarely discussed is how many people quit before that stage. How many walked up to the edge and stepped back. They kept their reputation, their security, their identity, and they lost something far more valuable: momentum. Jeff Bezos packed his life into a car and drove across the country. No safety net, just belief and doubt, lots of doubt. Every mile away from stability made turning back harder. And that's the point, because real commitment eliminates escape routes. Here's a question you need to sit with. If your plan still allows you to stay comfortable, is it really a plan or just a delay? Most people want transformation without disruption. They want a new life without losing the old one. But that's not how reality works. You don't upgrade your life. You replace it. Jeff Bezos didn't know he would succeed. He knew something else, that if he failed, he could rebuild. But if he stayed, he would always wonder. And that wondering is corrosive. It eats at you slowly. It turns years into decades, and decades into regret. Because once you understand what's possible, going back to what's comfortable feels unbearable. Failure hurts. It embarrasses you. It humbles you. It leaves scars. But failure fades. Regret does not. Regret waits. It waits until the noise is gone, until the ambition slows down, until life becomes quiet, and then it speaks. Most people don't fear failure. They fear being seen failing. They fear the looks, the questions, the silence. But what they don't realize is that no one remembers your failure. They remember their own lives. What is remembered is the life you never lived, the idea you buried, the chance you ignored, the version of yourself you never met. And that realization doesn't arrive early. It arrives late. Jeff Bezos didn't become who he is because he avoided pain. He became who he is because he chose temporary pain over permanent wondering. Because at some point, the fear of staying became louder than the fear of leaving. Look around. There are people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, who once stood exactly where you are, with energy, with time, with options, and now they tell stories that begin with, I could have, I should have. Those sentences are quiet tragedies. Regret doesn't scream. It whispers in ordinary moments, while driving, while lying in bed, while watching someone else succeed at the thing you were too afraid to try. And that's the cruel part, because regret makes you a spectator in a life that could have been yours. Jeff Bezos didn't avoid regret because he was bold. He avoided it because he was honest enough to admit that comfort was becoming a cage, honest enough to admit that safety was costing him growth, honest enough to admit that fear was not protecting him. It was limiting him. Here is the truth no one can escape. One day, effort will no longer be an option. One day, energy will fade, time will narrow, and choices will close. And on that day, your excuses will stop working. The question isn't, will you fail? The question is, can you live with not knowing? Jeff Bezos chose regret over failure, not because failure is easy, but because regret is unbearable. And that choice changed everything. This story isn't about Jeff Bezos. It's about you, about the moment you're standing in right now, about the thought you keep pushing away, about the risk you keep postponing. Because the future doesn't punish you for failing. It punishes you for never trying. One day, you will look back at this moment, and you'll remember the question, the only question that matters. What did you choose? If the story made you think, if it made you question the choices we don't talk about, this is what Untold Legacies is about. Stories they never teach. Moments that quietly change everything. Subscribe to Untold Legacies for more untold stories. And if this story spoke to you, leave a comment. I will make sure to read all comments. Thank you for watching.